Just got home from sitting in the blind this morning. As you can see, I still got my makeup on. Getting my gear off. Dog and baby are out here in the garage. Getting into trouble. But today, sitting in the blind, not seeing any deer. I was thinking about the misconception people have about hunting over feeders. Now, I am in no way saying hunting over a feeder is just as easy as hunting public land with your own tree, putting your own tree stand up, setting up game cams and scouting and all that. I am not saying it's just as easy. But what I am gonna say is it's not as easy as everyone thinks. And I had the exact same thought many people had. So let's kind of break this down. When I first moved to Texas, I was shocked at the amount of deer just everywhere in the neighborhoods, all over the place. And, we had a feeder set up in our backyard just so that not to hunt, just to enjoy watching them. And every morning when the feeder would go off, there'd be 5 or 6 of them out there. And I was like, hunting over feeders BS. I'm like, I can literally kill these things with a rock. Like, they're everywhere. This is, I had the same thing that, it's lame hunting over a feeder. And then my first season hunting, let me tell you about my hunting spot first. So where I live, little neighborhood, around this neighborhood, there's big ranches and big properties and all over the place. So I was like, I need to get permission to hunt one of these properties. I don't have enough land to hunt on, so I need to get permission to hunt one of these properties. And directly, like as you're leaving my neighborhood to get on the main road to go in and out of the area, directly across the street, there's this big gate that goes out to a ranch. Hold on, I'm gonna let the baby inside. Sorry about that. Want to go back inside apparently. Anyways, and I was like, man, I need to, type up a letter or something like that and drop it off at all these mailboxes or all of these fences, and hopefully someone lets me hunt their property. Well, one day I see this kid out there. Not kid. I call everyone. I'm in my 40s, so anyone in their 20s, 30s, they're kid to me. He's in his 20s, mid 20s. I see him out there getting the trash cans and putting them in the truck, to take them up to the houses. Their house is like a mile from where their front gate is. So I see him out there. I'm like, hey man, is this your property? He's like, no, it's my grandpa's, but I live out here. We have our own house out here. I live out here with my girlfriend, and my uncle has his own house on the property as well. And I was like, well, I was looking to try to find permission, to hunt on some of these properties around here. I was wondering if you guys would allow me to hunt your property. And I made it very specific. I was like, it's bow hunting. I'm gonna bow hunt. Me not knowing someone and allowing them to rifle hunt your property. Mind you, this is like 120 acres. It's not an 800,000 acre ranch. And someone rifle hunting, to me, it's dangerous. Bullets travel a long way. And, if they're not super familiar with where the houses are, they have horses on the property. There's 4 horses on the property. I would be concerned with allowing some random dude that pulls up on you at your mailbox to rifle hunt the property. Anyways, so he's like, we had another guy that has a blind out here already that we used to allow to hunt, but I haven't seen him in the last couple years. And he's like, but I'll talk to my grandpa. So some time goes by, about maybe 2 or 3 months. I get a phone call from this guy, and he's like, hey, my grandpa said more than willing to come out here and set up a feeder and a blind and come hunt. And I was like, okay, yeah, appreciate it. Can I come meet your grandpa and stuff? And when they told me that I could set up a feeder and a blind, I was like, I just want to walk the property with my bow and, hunt whitetail. Well, it's not that easy to hunt whitetail, even over a feeder. So then that first season, I do set up, they have, because they have horses on the property, they put their feeders in like little barbed wire pens so the horses can't get to the feeders and knock them over and stuff. And I buy like a cheap little pop-up blind and a cheap feeder too, like those $200 feeders you get from Tractor Supply. And I set it up. And the first day I sat on this property, I smoke a doe. Originally, the grandfather said, yeah, I don't mind if he takes a couple does. And I'm only in it for meat. I hunt for meat. I don't want wall hangers. I'm not looking for trophy bucks. I want meat in the freezer. Ground beef is like $6 a pound right now. I need to put meat in the freezer. Anyways, so I smoke a doe like first hour hunting this property. And even his grandpa was like, man, that worked out better than I thought. They've never had a bow hunter on the property. They're all rifle hunters. And I was like, man, this hunting over a feeder thing is kind of a joke, right? I was like, I didn't really take it serious. I'm like, this, you set up a feeder, just like the deer in the backyard, they show up, you could shoot arrows at them. Well, that was the last time hunting over a feeder was that easy. Because I didn't take it serious after that. And I was like, I could just show up whenever I feel like it and get a deer. Well, I didn't shoot another deer the rest of that season. It was the year of, it was like 3 or 4 years ago when we had the snowvid, when it was freezing cold and stuff. And I wanted my son to go with me and I wanted him to be there and help me clean it and experience the whole thing of, taking a deer and harvesting a deer. And we sat maybe 10 times after that. I sat 20 times. He came with me half of those times and froze our butts off and never got another shot at another deer. Right? And the following season, I had set my blind up in a different spot because where my blind was, the sun was coming over the hills and it was like right in my eyes, and taking a shot was hard, especially with a bow. So I'd relocated my blind. Now it's a little bit closer to the feeder, to the pen. And for anyone out there that whitetail hunts knows that whitetail are ninjas. They have the best senses out of any prey species on this planet. Every little movement. So, like I said, I'm only hunting 20, 30 yards. Longest shot I've taken at a deer out of my blind has been 27 yards, right? And so I never brought my binos. I never saw a need to bring my binos. Where my blind's at, there's like a big meadow, like surrounding trees. And so I have a little like hanger. Yeah, you can't really see it. It's like a bow stand that I made that I keep in my blind to hang my bow on. And I was like, a little deer walks in, I'll grab it off there and take a shot. No big deal, right? Wrong. As soon as they get within that 30 yards, you can't barely move without them getting on you and huffing and puffing and stomping. They are so tuned to their environment. It's unreal. Even down to, I think they pick up like the blind, it's all camouflaged outside when the window's open, and now it's like blind with a big, window open, black spot. They're even picking up on that. And they're like, hey, that looks different than all the other times I've come to this feeder. So back to the binoculars things. Now, mind you, I was under the impression he only wanted me taking does. So I needed to identify these deer while they were far away to get my bow in my hand and get it ready. So I started wearing my binos so I could see them coming out of the tree line and be like, okay, that's a spike. Don't worry about it. Okay, that's a young doe or whatever. Oh, that's a shooter. Get your bow and get ready, because once they get in this 40 yard circumference, 30 yard circumference, you can't hardly do anything other than get your bow drawn and get that shot off as quick as possible. Now, on top of them being super spooky, they don't show up like you think they do. You know, like these neighborhood deer that I'm used to seeing show up to my feeder every single morning are very different than these deer that live on these big properties where they have other places to go and other food sources and places to hide and predators and stuff like that. Like there's deer around here that we can hand feed, or we used to be able to hand feed. And the ones out there are very different. Very, very different. So this whole misconception, it is easier hunting over a feeder out of a blind than it is hunting public land out of a tree stand. Even I hung a tree stand up on this property because they have their feeders set up and my feeder's over here. And I think the deer were going from one feeder to the other. So I had set up a tree stand at one point in between those two feeders. And it's hard. It's tough. So don't ever... It's easier than hunting public land out of a tree stand, 100%. But it's not the easiest. It is difficult to be able to hunt these deer. They are really in tune with their surroundings. They are super aware of small, minute changes and smells. My dog, I always take him with me when I go over there to like fill the feeder up. And the last 2 times I took him, he's peed and pooped in that pen where my feeder's at. So I had to clean that up because I'm sure they walk in there and smell that. They're like, we're out of here. And they just don't show up every second of every morning when the feeder goes off like they do in the neighborhood. Now, there are, big properties and stuff like that where they have multiple feeders set up year round and stuff. And they probably have big, amounts of deer that show up consistently every day. And I'm sure there are different scenarios, but what I'm dealing with, it's not that easy. I just sat for the last 4 hours and didn't see a single deer until I was driving home. I posted a short a few minutes ago about this giant 10-point buck that walks out in front of my truck. Literally, here's like a main highway. Here's the ranch. I drive across the highway up into my neighborhood, and here comes a big 10-point buck. Walks directly across the street right in front of me. It was wild. So I just wanted to talk about a little bit about the misconceptions about, hunting over feeders. Now, I've never hunted high fence. That's another thing. They started off talking about Joe Rogan talking about this, because I used to be the same way. I used to be like, I'll never hunt over a feeder. I'm just going to walk around this ranch with my bow until I see something, take a shot at it. Wrong. They're not neighborhood deer. They won't let you get close enough. They're smart. And when November starts and the gunshots start going off and people are sighting in their rifles or taking shot at deer, they disappear. It is tough, especially with a bow. With a bow, I can take 80-yard shots with my bow consistently. Until you're sitting down in your little bow blind, it's very different taking that shot. So having to be within 30, 40 yards, which 40 yards in my opinion is like that dead zone of where it's hard to take a shot at a whitetail. The arrow's not moving fast enough, then the sound, that's a whole different topic. But they'll duck a 40-yard shot. 60, 70-yard shot, they probably won't duck. 20 yards, they don't really have time to duck. But it's tough. It's tough, I've sat a whole bunch and have had deer come in and not been able to get my bow and get control of it and take a shot off just because how spooky they are. They'll start huffing and stomping their feet and blow the whole area out. Everything around them will go. There's always one doe that has been around and she'll spook them all off. She'll spook them all. Now, granted, I had a buck a couple years ago, 2 years ago, that I took a shot at. Mind you, I had mentioned that they're in pens. My arrow hit the barbed wire and glanced over its back, I think. I know that's what happened. It glanced over its back, and he jumped out of the pen. And I think I got a follow-up shot on him then, or he came back the next night. One of the two. I can't remember if I got another follow-up shot. Actually, I think he jumped out and kind of walked off. Yeah, and then the next night he came back in. Anyways, just wanted to share that. And I've already spoken of this many times. I'm not some super duper bow hunter guy. I enjoy shooting archery. I need to put meat in the freezer to offset the cost of meat right now. So that's like my whole motivation for hunting is for meat. I'm not one of these, big whitetail guys or elk hunters or none of that kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to go on an elk hunt. I'd love to go on a mule deer hunt. I'd love to do a lot of these things. It's just not that important to me. It's just doesn't pique my interest enough to like put in that kind of work. I hate being cold. I can't stand being cold. I finally bought a heater for my blind because I was sick of freezing for hours, not seeing any deer. Just not that big of a hunter. So this is what I do is I hunt out of a pop-up box blind over a feeder to hopefully put a couple deer in the freezer for the year. That's about it. That's my story. Cheers.